Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Natural Food Pantry Education Initiative. Joining me today to speak about inflammation is my guest, Naturopathic Doctor Kate Rheaume. Dr. Kate Rheaume is a graduate and former faculty member of the Canadian College of Naturopathic Medicine. As an educator, Dr. Kate speaks internationally on many topics related to health and wellness. She is the author of the best-selling book, Vitamin K2 and the Calcium Paradox: How a Little-Known Vitamin Could Save Your Life. Welcome, Dr. Kate.
Thanks, Natasha.
So this is a really critical conversation, as so many people are faced with inflammatory conditions. And I think a lot of people believe that inflammation is only associated with conditions that cause, physical pain like arthritis and bursitis, all our itises, inflammatory bowel disease like colitis, or skin disorders like psoriasis. But what a lot of people might not understand is that many other diseases are linked with inflammation. So could you just talk a little bit about that, mention some of the other diseases and how they're linked to inflammation?
Yes, it's a good point. We all know when something is inflamed, if it's painful. Pain, swelling, loss of function, those are obvious signs of inflammation, the itises, as you mentioned. But inflammation also plays a role in the process of just about every disease process, every chronic health condition. And it might not be obvious. In other words, it might not be painful. The body can produce a number of different types of inflammatory mediators, and not all of them cause noticeable signs of pain. And so inflammation, in fact, can be affecting us, but we might not notice it, we might not feel it. Conditions that feature inflammatory reactions that we might not notice include things like cardiovascular disease, absolutely, and condition related to inflammation, and that can trigger the process of cardiovascular disease of many different types of it, as well as dementia and other things that affect our cognitive function, things like Alzheimer's disease. Absolutely, inflammatory components have been associated and identified with that. And so those are just two examples of conditions that may have what you call silent inflammation. In other words, it doesn't make itself known by being obvious or painful.
Right. And I know, it's interesting. I've spoken to so many people working in this industry, and a lot of people seem to believe that inflammation is a natural part of the aging process. A lot of people attribute their arthritis to simply aging. So what are your thoughts on that? Is it natural to us?
Well, it's a common part of the aging process. And I suppose you could argue that it's natural, but that doesn't mean that's something you have to tolerate, put up with, deal with, accept as just the whole concept of just a part of the aging process. Maybe we're not aging as well as we should be. And just the fact that it becomes more common with time doesn't mean it's something that we have to put up with, or there's nothing that we can do about it. So that's definitely not something that I accept. Maybe over time, if you're looking at, say, as an example, arthritis, okay, sure, maybe there's a little bit more physical wear and tear on the joints that's triggering pain that has happened over time, but that doesn't mean there aren't still things that we can do to help minimize the inflammation, heal the process that has been started. And so I never really accept that as, this condition or this symptom or this pain is just a part of aging, that it's inherent to the aging process. There's always something we can do to make it better.
I agree completely. And so from a holistic perspective, I think it's really important to always address the underlying cause of an issue. So related to inflammation, why do you believe that so many people are faced with inflammation these days?
Well, inflammation is a natural part of our healing process. And so, you need the inflammation response, and in small amounts, it's a good thing. But it's when it doesn't resolve normally and naturally to completion, and it goes on and lingers, whether we can feel it or not, that it becomes a problem. And so there are a lot of contributing factors to why inflammatory process may start or may not resolve the way it is supposed to and designed to. Stress is a contributing factor, absolutely. Our body produces inflammatory compounds in response to stress. So that will contribute and exacerbate and prolong any existing inflammation. our diet is a big contributor. Either things in our diet that shouldn't be there that are encouraging the production of more inflammatory compounds, or a lack of nutrients that we need to help balance the inflammatory process or have it resolved. And so our nutrition and our diet, things that should or shouldn't be there, are contributing factors. There are other, things in our environment that may be exacerbating the inflammatory process. There's lots of reasons why our modern lifestyle predisposes us to more prolonged inflammation.
Yeah. And are there any tests that can be done to determine inflammatory levels in the body?
There are markers of inflammation that can be checked even at your checkup with your doctor. You can have something called CRP, reactive protein, measured, and this is a marker of inflammation that can be checked. However, even if that's high, you don't necessarily know why it's high. So absolutely, if that's elevated, there is a sign that there's inflammation in the body. It doesn't necessarily pinpoint where that's coming from. So, it's something worthwhile getting checked. If it's low, that doesn't mean there's no inflammation happening. Similarly, if it's high, we don't necessarily know where it's coming from, but it's something that we can use as a guide.
Okay, great. And then once we get those results, we can look at natural ways to reduce inflammation.
Yes, there's lots of things that we can do naturally to balance this inflammatory response, to make sure that we encourage and support the body in its ability to produce anti-inflammatory compounds to resolve the inflammatory process. That can be through nutrition, that can be through lifestyle. There's certain active habits that we can have. Even our thoughts, believe it or not, can generate or help resolve the production of inflammatory compounds. And so that's pretty interesting information and research that can affect us down to the cellular level. But the point is, there's lots that we can do naturally, absolutely, to help resolve inflammation.
Yeah, that mind-body connection is pretty amazing. And so on June 15th, you're going to be delivering a webinar through Natural Food Pantry on inflammation and pain. Can you tell the viewers a little bit more about what to expect from the webinar?
Now, I will be on the 15th talking about inflammation in general, to give people a bit better understanding of the process and how it works. I will be focusing on some more of the itises, the noticeably painful conditions, and particularly joint inflammation, because that's one of the #1 concerns in areas where people will notice and feel and suffer with inflammation that affects quality of life. But I'll also be talking about some unique and even new natural anti-inflammatory compounds that are safe, not habit forming, and help provide ways to relieve inflammation.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for taking time to share your knowledge with us, Dr. Kate. I look forward to your webinar on the 15th. For those of you who would like more information or would like to register for Dr. Kate's webinar on June 15th on inflammation and pain, please visit naturalfoodpantry.ca. It's under the Classes and Services tab of our website. And please be sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Thank you, everybody. Stay healthy.